Who is the most hated person in your workplace and why? Won't name names in case this comes back to me, but he's a level 3 engineer who does absolutely nothing all day. He'll book a conference room and sit in the dark for hours. He'll sit at his desk and do actually nothing except exist. But his team, which he did not assemble and which he does not actually lead, is good enough to make him look good, so he keeps getting more responsibility. I work in a small chiropractic clinic. 3 chiropractors, 4 receptionists, 2 per shift. One of the receptionists literally does nothing but check patients in. We are supposed to work on billing and other tasks to do with insurance. She always leaves her Facebook logged in into the communal computer, so I like a bunch of dank meme Facebook pages for her. The woman who would use money from our pool tip jar to fix her pricing mistakes. Literally stealing money from her coworkers to cover her butt. We all hated her. My boss's wife has been given a position of authority over my department, despite having no experience or expertise in the area. But the worst part is, she is an older lady and by all accounts seems to be suffering from dementia Alzheimer's. Every single email you send her or email chain she's included on, she will respond without having any understanding of what was written to her. So then you have to spend the time explaining the whole content of the chain or email to her. We have to attend meetings with her where she will spend a lot of time rambling about things that have nothing to do with our work. We have to remind her or explain things we talked about at the last meeting that are relevant because she doesn't remember or understand. Then the whole thing happens all over again in the next interaction with her like it's Groundhog Day for her. We have this goober of a guy who works probably 1 full day a week. I actually get surprised if I don't have an email in my inbox in the morning of him saying he won't be in. Worst of all though, he sits nearest to the bathroom and makes comments like, "Wow, you were in there a long time. Must have been a number 2 when people come out." George the Joiner, minimal number of fingers, bad personal hygiene, unintelligibly thick accent, farmer pirate etc. This is not a man you want operating a forklift, operating machinery, or driving. If he carries something through the workshop, it's a safe bet he will utterly destroy something with his own brand of half-blind ignorance. But what a man. Mysterious and enigmatic. Who is he? Where did he come from? When will he go back? After reading this dust jacket summary, I'm buying this book. Far and away the most hated person in my carpentry shop is the deaf guy. I've only been working there a year and everyone thinks he is the most vindictive, hateful, selfish, paranoid butthole to walk the earth. He's easily the hardest worker there. I can tell you with confidence that he has generated the most money for the company of anyone there. He absolutely owns his portion of the shop. He has it down like clockwork and doesn't waste a second. All that being said, he throws an absolute rabbit fit whenever anything out of routine happens and he won't look anyone in the eye and he calls everyone lazy buttholes. After a month of working there I started to learn ASL, American Sign Language. I learned a few things at home and would say anything that I could to him. Happy Monday, how are you, etc. I learned how to ask about words, how to spell things, how to sign numbers. Pretty soon he's teaching me a word a day, then it speeds up to 3-5 words a day. Fast forward a year and we talk constantly. What I learned is that he gets mad because he is being passed up for promotions because he is deaf. People don't tell him when overtime is available, which he wants. He sees people coming in late and still taking breaks and he never breaks those rules. He gets mad that no one ever tells him about new machines being bought or new jobs coming in or the gossip. I unknowingly became his liaison. He stopped fighting with people. He's able to get all of the jokes we tell at lunch because I can translate. He can joke back through me. Other people are learning sign language as time goes on too. What I don't get is why no one ever gave him the benefit of the doubt. It would suck to be deaf and never know what was going on. Some people have worked with him for 15+ years and no one ever learned any ASL. He thanked me recently for being a good friend. He said things are a lot better now. Not working there anymore, but I had one co-worker, call him Roy, who was a pose. We worked in IT support and Roy was considered the expert for a certain system our team managed. He was supposed to train me but he only taught me the very basic stuff. He never told me about the plethora of problems that can occur with the system. When alerts did happen, which I had no idea what they were or how to respond to, he would chastise me and throw me under the bus. There was another incident where the boss didn't trust him to come in for an overtime shift, so I was asked to come in at a certain time to cover. I called Roy first thing in the morning and asked if he would come in. He said he would, so I went in at my normal time. Roy doesn't show and I'm forced to work 10 hours that day to cover his lazy butt. Surprisingly, the incident didn't get him fired, but he did proudly announce he found a new job a month later. The new job rescinded their offer and he went into survival mode. He deliberately continued to train me poorly to make himself unreplaceable, but the company refused to let him stay and that was the end of that. Coworker who talks way too dang much. I can make conversation with my coworkers, but we all have a sense of when it's appropriate. She's the kind of person who bombards me with chatter as soon as I walk in, before I've even taken my jacket off. She tries to make conversation out of everything, to the point where it gets really annoying because it happens so frequently. I was really swamped with stuff the other day, and she stopped me just to point out that a customer's last name was one letter different from her own maiden name. Isn't it amazing? No, Carol, it's not. S constantly eats throughout the day, but to do this he must take several trips to the canteen to acquire food. But on the way to the canteen it starts with at least a 20-minute cigarette break. Complains heavily if anyone asks him to do anything as he is always too busy. We have flexi time at work, so he gets in early, and on the odd time I have turned up early the office lights are always off. Apparently prefers working in the dark, becomes deeply offended at any change in the office, and the temperature must be kept cold as he can't work if it's too warm. Can't stand the coffee addicts in the office as they need caffeine but drinks several bottles of Coca-Cola every day. I have been in the office now for nearly 2 years, still yet to work out what he actually does. He smells, he's sweaty, and when he sneezes he wipes his nose with his hand and then cleans it off on the desk. I hate S and so do the rest of us. I'm self-employed, but when I forget a deadline, it's definitely me. Our most hated person is a troll who survives off cigarettes, Diet Pepsi and the souls she drains, mine included, some of her greatest hits, telling me I am not getting any younger therefore, my babies would be retarded, her word, not mine. Telling a delightful tale of how she once snuck in pork into a Muslim's diet, going on about her husband's pension and how she doesn't have to work, she just works for the fun of it, yet she bum smokes and bus fare off people half her age. She lives to get anyone into trouble, yet she's incompetent herself, and when she's called on it, she says, to her is human. Every week she threatens to quit but nowhere would have her. You know those rows of staples you put in a stapler? He takes 2 of those, faces them against each other and rubs them between his fingers all day. It may be worse than nails on a chalkboard, and he will not stop for anyone. The chick that runs everywhere, inside an office building, for exercise. Let me tell you about Supervisor Chef Bob. We all hated Bob. Bob wasn't a team player. You see, when we were swamped, everyone would skip breaks, except for Bob. We would all help whoever was falling behind, except Bob. Bob did his own thing and left you to the wolves. Bob always pointed out what you did wrong. Eventually Bob started helping me a little when I would fall behind. I thanked him once for grilling a steak for one of my orders, and I made the mistake of telling him that steaks are my weak spot. I had trouble overcooking them. For weeks after that he arranged it so I cooked every dang steak. Time passes and I become, not to brag, one of the competent employees. I noticed one night that Bob was jumping in to help me whenever I fell behind. He would even ask what I wanted him to cover. Once I was working with him and I noticed Brenda was falling behind. Brenda is always falling behind. I was clear for a minute and told Bob that I was going to go help Brenda for a minute. Bob said no, Brenda has to learn how to do her job. She won't learn if we always do it for her. And I saw Bob in a whole new light. He wasn't lazy. He just wanted us all to know our jobs. Once he knew anyone could handle anything, then he was quick to help out. He admitted to me once, very bad at remembering who had taken breaks. He had no problem covering for a break. We just had to ask him instead of waiting forever for him to tell us to go. Now, Bob is gone. I was genuinely sad to see him go. Standards have fallen, and Brenda still is incapable of doing her job. A girl recently promoted to be an interim education director position, but she fails to leave out the interim part when introducing herself. She brings her untrained disobedient dog to work, wears highly inappropriate clothing to her job working with kids, tells people they have to respect her because she's a director, leaves her desk a mess, makes every story about her, willfully ignores safety protocols if she doesn't have time for them, had fatherly nicknames for the old boss, sat on the boss's lap at the Christmas party kissing him on the cheek, and smiles like Ted Cruz. The guy isn't hated. It just astounds all of us how he can continue to be employed here after each and every F-up he has had. Stuff that any one of us would get fired for, most likely, but he continues to clock in each day. Examples. Took a customer car that was in storage and put about 100 miles on the car. He had no permission from us or the customer to take it. The customer was not told and we hope they didn't notice when the car came out of storage. We normally don't store cars, but this was a personal favor granted by the CEO, who is this customer's friend, or something like that. He almost set the whole one side of our workshop on fire because he decided to overload the circuits on an outlet and smoke started pouring out of it. He has detailed customers' cars for cash deals from them all while using our shop space and supplies. He has been seen skateboarding and failing with epic falls in the workshop where guys are working on customer cars. This is all on video from security footage. He sits in this little side office that the detail guys use and smokes pot, and the smell is so strong I have walked past and wondered how customers haven't noticed. The only thing we can come up with is that he has something on someone higher up and will blab if not kept working here. One of my co-workers was always desperate for my boss's approval. My boss is notorious for not handing out compliments easily, which only made my co-worker all the more desperate for it. She'd offer to do other people's work to show off to the boss, but she'd screw it up, resulting in the rest just wasting time redoing it and making her look worse in the process. I might not be the most hated person in my workplace, but I hate myself the most for continuing to work here. We had a manager who was one of those authoritarian, anal retentive types that just had a negative outlook on things in general. She was shrill and petty, and I found out later she told another co-worker manager that I would never amount to much of anything after I interviewed for a promotion with her and that other manager. After she left and that other co-worker got his own team, guess who was the first person he brought on board and was eventually his first promotion? I not only outlasted her but earned 3 Employee of the Quarter awards. Other managers hated her too, and at one point one of them stuck a fish in the ceiling above her office and just left it there as it started to rot and stink up the space. They would just snicker as they walked by her office while she was lighting candles or air fresheners. A woman who, on her first day, went around asking a series of oddly specific questions like, "Are you white or mixed? How old are you a religious or not?" We stupidly answered them, thinking she was just being friendly. She put on a sweet, naive demeanor. After a couple of months of sitting on her butt and doing nothing but lying about her knowledge base, skills, and her progress on several projects, her supervisor tries to fire her. Of course, she's union, so that's not as easy as it sounds. We find out she's filed grievances against all of us. The white male is racist. The 1/2 Korean, lesbian supervisor is ageist. I'm a bigot because I'm non-denominational Christian and she's Baptist. The other African American female around her same age was after her job. This woman literally pulled every card she had. She managed to keep her job too, but thankfully, corporate transferred her and got her out of our hair. My freaking time to shine. He's not here anymore. Thank God, but I think it still counts. Let me tell you about this stain on society's butt. For reference, I work in a troubled youth therapeutic center. Refused to get a key to the gate, which led to half of all of the buildings, of which he most commonly went to. When asked about it, he would just say that that's what I have you guys for. Frequently late clocking into work. Fell asleep on the job almost every night. People in charge couldn't get rid of him because we're so horribly understaffed, and the kids liked him. When confronted by other staff, he got offensive and told us to mind our own dang business. Rarely ever wore the company uniform. He almost always wore Therapeutic sports jackets over a long sleeve shirt. Who knows if he actually had the uniform on underneath. One night I was paired with him, and I'd had enough. I wrote him a note, so as not to alert the kids as to what was going on. That said, if he fell asleep that I would report him to our supervisors. And he literally began verbally abusing me, calling me a piece of crap. I have no life. I should just kill myself now, etc. Frick you Jordan, nobody misses you. My office has the classic argue about anything guy. I mentioned once that I had recently rewatched the movie Equilibrium. This guy butted in and announced that the movie actually sucks. Spent about 10 minutes saying the effects were lame, the costumes were lame, futuristic movies are so overdone, obviously not knowing this movie came out 15 years ago, then ends it by saying I haven't actually seen it. I'm just saying, this election season has been a nightmare. Guy went out of his way to try to find out who everyone was voting for, and if someone wouldn't tell him, he'd make an educated guess, and then argue and question their voting choice that he himself decided. He vehemently debated the result of the election and ended up exposing that he in fact had no idea what the Electoral College does and also had never even heard the term gerrymandering. Not something I would expect everyone to be knowledgeable on, but probably don't start a massive office fight if you don't know the basics of the argument. Also mentioned that LGBT rights aren't that big of a deal to an LGBT office member. The best moment had to be when one co-worker decided to mess with him and posted a warning about the dangers of dihydrogen monoxide. The co-worker told this guy that illegalizing this dangerous chemical was important. Dihydrogen monoxide can suffocate people, is found in acid rain, etc. The guy totally agreed and said Trump would handle it. Without being too specific, I used to work at an insurance company. My co-worker killed her daughter and then tried to kill herself, but failed. I felt bad for her estranged husband. He was taking the daughter to Disney and the mom killed her the night before. Gary eats a whole rotisserie chicken with his hands every Wednesday. Kelly doesn't work very hard. Cheryl killed her daughter. Tom microwaves fish. Not a specific person so much as a group of them, but in the factory world it is generally the temps. They are always an interesting group of characters. Our current batch includes a quiet dude who is a good worker and decent overall, but quietly sings and mumbles to himself and always has a vacant, dead look in his eye. No one hates him. He's just kinda spooky. A girl with a wonky eye who openly tells people she's on dope and doesn't have custody of any of her kids and randomly interjects personal questions while you're working with her. Always on her phone, against factory policy, and wanders away into the bathroom for long periods of time. A passive-aggressive terror of a lady who's catty towards all the other girls, then plays dumb and cock-teases guys into doing her work for her. Honorable mentions who were canned. Wolverine, a middle-aged balding guy who wore button-downs with torn-off sleeves, with the top buttons open to expose his manly chest hair. Total perv who hit on 18-year-old me constantly and then called me a yes. Would touch the operator's machine settings, which is grounds for a shanking. Some 20-something kid who was being let out of prison to work. He wore this shirt that said "Cool story babe, make me a sandwich every freaking night." He never shut up, claimed he had his own business and would tell stories about how he ended up producing 7 children by different women while still currently married to the first one. You have been visited by the super land shark. Comment not today to make sure he doesn't eat you. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.